right, so I'll dive here into a little bit of some of the other characters. Sandler was always around, even in the first incarnations. You needed a tech guy. Um, you needed somebody that knew all the stuff that she wouldn't know. So Sandler was kind of always there. I early uh, uh, version way back in the '90s. I thought about making like that would be like this flirted with romance thing, but as time's gone on, I don't want to have it. Mirov should never be in love with anybody but Alice. Like if you make 50 Mirov movies or books, she should never be in love with anybody but Alice. I hate the idea that yeah, I have to define this female heroine through some sort of romantic thing. Plus, it's like even like sexually, it doesn't work for me. Like she's so dominant, and it's like kind of like the scene in the train. And I'm assuming you read the book, so don't watch these if you haven't read the book. So like there's a scene in the train with Devlin, um, and he asked her like what kind of man would have enough balls to like put a move on you. So like that's kind of like that's my thinking too. It's like she's so dominant, she's so forceful. Like I can't even fathom the idea of a dude trying to like put a move on her, right? So like it's like she's untouchable. And plus too, I mean, what does it matter? I mean, I don't understand what it matters. Why do I gotta like create this romantic thing for this hero? I don't get it. She's in love with Alice. Relationship's about Alice. If she falls in love with somebody, she'll do it when the cameras aren't rolling and the book's not being written. It's got nothing to do with the story. I hate that. I hate that. Like it's like men heroes get to just fight bad guys. Why can't my female hero just fight bad guys and just leave it at that? So I didn't want in any way, shape, or form to have a romantic relationship define her whatsoever. Alice is who she loves, period, in the story, done. So Sandler is he's the tech guy, right? To make him interesting through his own eccentricities. Devlin was actually named Hardy at one point, but then more went along. I hated the name Hardy, and just didn't work for me anymore. So he got switched to Devlin. He's basically always the kind of same thing, kind of like your Michael Ironside from Total Recall type of a dude. Excuse me. Big Verhoeven influences and all this stuff. But the problem I have with Devlin is like I needed him to go unhinged more. Like he's kind of like got a point. I mean, you can actually like see Devlin's point, which is like the best villains. You can kind of see where they're coming from, right? They're not just like throwing shit against the wall mad. They usually got some kind of Hans Gruber and Die Hard's trying to steal a whole bunch of money. I mean, if you could get, was it 300, however many millions of whatever bearer bonds in the safe, you would steal that if you could, right? You can kind of get that. You got to relate to the villain a little bit. So, like the fact that he wants freedom on Mars and revenge on Unidom, you can kind of see his point, right? But he had to like do something to make you stop siding with him. So a late introduction, actually, it was not even in the first draft, was the introduction of space drugs, which the name space drug comes from me, and I really think is funny from the movie Arrival, where she held up the sign and somebody put the meme in, y'all got any of these space drugs? I love that meme. So called it space drugs came from that meme. But anyway, call it red. And so basically it's a chemical found on Mars. He gets addicted to it, and as it drives him mad. So his madness would be driven from the drug abuse. Drug abuse is driven from his tortured soul, et cetera, et cetera. So it all kind of makes sense. It wouldn't just be left field stuff. So that's where that comes from. The drug makes him become more maniacal. So at the end, when he's ranting on Raven, it makes more sense, right? And so, like, again, I hope you've read the book. So don't watch this if you haven't read the book. So even at the end, so in the end, when he's meets his end, and she's shot his legs off and one arm off, and he's screaming now like for his mercy, like so many times. Like this is the thing I try to do throughout I hate when heroes let people off the hook that should die, and like you need to kill them, and like because later on there's going to cause you grief later. So like that's the reason why in the computer the server room, she comes back and shoots Baker in the face. She's like, oh, I forgot. I even had Ethel go, Jesus Christ, what you did? Well, like I hate that in movies. Like, he's a bad guy. Just get rid of him and kill him. He won't come back. Later. If she'd let him go, he's gonna come back and drive her crazy later, right? So boom, done. He's dead. Killed him. Like I wanted her to be. She's ruthless enough to do that. So same thing with Devlin. She was having mercy on him. They just thought, minimize the blood loss, but turning it on. He would, slowly come back. He would end up like the governor. He'd just rally around and come back around and be a cyborg or guide his art wheelchair, or whatever. No, the hell with him. Blows just. That's the reason I had her so emphatically kill him off with like shoot him in the head. His head just disintegrated like a melon. But that's the reason for it. Like she puts the bad guy down. Period. There's no vagary to it. So yeah, the governor is heavily influenced from the Grand Illusion and Eric von Stroheim, the neck brace and all that stuff. Like this guy who's been he's been through it. He's been through wars, and he's had a time. And so I wanted the governor to be like, he shows all the effects of years and years of wars and battles, and he's almost Darth Vader like, and how he's just kept together with braces and wheelchairs and stuff like that. I made a point in the book to like never talk about race. The only races that are ever defined in the book are is Mirov, and then by default Alice are white European, with a Russian heritage or whatever. Other than that, like I never wanted to like talk about race. You could whoever you want to in your head, you can fill in there. So like the governor, I was like, it would probably be interesting if like Idris Elba would be like in the brace and the wheelchair and stuff like that. That would be like really cool because you don't really get to see that often. I mean, they should do more of that kind of stuff. So I didn't write that in the book, but in my mind, it's like kind of that's who I see. I'm trying to like tell you who people I see, like Michael Ironside for Devlin, and I told you about Mirov. And it's like Idris Elba in a wheelchair with a neck brace and and plus with using more of his British accent, not his American accent, that'd be really cool. So and in the old books, he was gonna be the villain. I don't want to do that anymore. He's a good guy. He's an asshole. He's a good guy, but he's an asshole. But that's pretty much the governor is pretty much cut and dry. I like the idea of a supreme figure that's been mangled, and he's tolerant of Mirov, and he was a default father to her, and I like that whole aspect, that idea of a relationship there. And that'll probably get explored more and more through other books and things like that. I'm not done exploring that, but I just planted a lot of seeds there with that. Sikes, in my mind, that's Scott Glenn from every Scott Glenn, where Silence of the Lambs, Scott Glenn is the FBI agent. That's Sikes to me, is the Scott Glenn type character. That's the kind of guy he always kind of played. Straight-laced by the book, reasonable person. He'd be a normal person if it wasn't for a movie or a book. Throwing the little wrinkle there where he was a fake double agent, but it was all just feeding stuff on purpose to Devlin, and Devlin knowing it. Kind of all that double agent spy type stuff. I'm not too interested in that kind of thing, but enough there to make the story kind of like keep pushing or whatever. But Sikes is pretty much like the most normal person in this universe. That kind of gives you an idea. And I already talked about Ethel, and she's just really crucial to the whole story. Ethel, and I like the idea of her voice not being your typical like, "Hi, welcome. I am Ethel, cyber communications droid." And I don't want that. Like, I want her to be something completely different. I mean, the voice I hear in my head. I mean, I don't want to run it for you. It's whatever Southern lady's voice you hear in your head. That I'm not gonna like prejudice your mind on what voice you hear. I got an idea in my mind, but I won't tell you what it is. Anyway, so that's those other characters. Alice is another one that is just whatever you see in your head. That's fine. I got my own ideas, but I'm not sure I'm even concrete on them. There was always something supernatural about her from even early on. And the whole, I think the early drafts, Mirov was more of a genetic experiment, not so much a Rabari, half alien hybrid type deal. I think I did that later on. And but it was always like a second generation thing. I always like the idea of like, well, the second generation's where it's not so much Mirov is what you're trying to get. You're trying to really get Alice. And I always like the idea of like, Yeah, I had to make Mirov, but I really am interested in who comes after Mirov, and like that's would be this what the scientists were trying to achieve. So that's kind of why that's in there. Is like, the first model of anything is always kind of like, the second, third model that after you get past prototype is those are the ones you really want. And so like it's kind of like Mirov is kind of like 1.0, and then Alice is going to be 2.0. As you get older, she would surpass her mother in a lot of ways. But Mirov is a tank, and Alice would be more of a sleek fighter, jet fighter or something. But anyway, it kind of gives you an idea of the auxiliary characters of the Robari themselves. I guess we'll talk about that next.